Greetings. My name is Aaron J. French. I'm an editor, a researcher of esoteric and mystical ideas, and an author of dark fiction. I wanted to make this brief video to talk about a project that I'm working on. Here is the flyer for the project. It's a public workshop entitled Science Fiction and Mystical Consciousness. The flyer describes the subjects that we're going to be talking about, how to register, and a bio on me, and where the event will be held. The workshop is going to take place here in Davis, California from March 8th to April 12th, Thursday nights from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. The cost is $90, and we've rented a space at the Universalist Church here in Davis. So some people have asked me, what's this all about? What are you trying to do with this workshop? What are we going to be doing in it? And so honestly, this is an experiment for me. I've never tried to put together something like this before. I'm trying to bring together a lot of my interests and ideas into one place and just play around and have some fun and see what we can come up with. It's definitely designed for both writers and non-writers. So if you're a practicing, fiction writer, and we can workshop some stories in there, but at the very least we'll be, working on ideas and working on ways to make better stories and how to enhance one's imagination in the pursuit of those stories. But it's also, there's no required writing other than we're going to keep a dream journal. So in some cases, if people who want to come to the workshop who are just interested in esoteric ideas, esotericism, maybe just interested in the boundaries of science and scientific knowledge and pushing beyond those through science fiction writing, who just like to read this stuff and like these ideas, all are welcome in that regard. And so depending on the kind of people that come, we would either focus more on fiction writing and workshopping, or more on discussing these ideas. But the only required writing is going to be keeping a dream journal. So sometimes people who have had dreams and have recorded their dreams and written them down in a narrative fashion can compare those with maybe some other people who are trying to work on a story idea. And I thought that it would be interesting to compare dream journal entries and flash fiction pieces or short story ideas, to kind of mix and mash the two together to just to see what kind of interesting stuff we could come up with, particularly how it relates to our own inner life and our own perception of reality and our own ideas about imagination as a faculty at the disposal of human beings, which we all have this faculty of imagination, and I think it's sometimes a little bit neglected as adults. Particularly for writers, this is our main tool that we're using. So I think that the more exploration of that faculty and the more we can play with it and enhance it, the better for us, but for everyone, in my opinion. So some of the topics that we're going to be doing in the workshop, which I already mentioned, one is we'll be keeping a dream journal. So this is a book called Dreaming in the Classroom, and it's the idea about how to keep a dream journal and how to bring one's dreams into a public setting, in a classroom in this case, and to discuss them constructively, and to use them as a way to bounce those ideas off of other people, and just to really explore the side of us that is engaged in dreaming at night. I mean, some people don't dream so much, perhaps some people dream a lot, but there is a way to stimulate dreaming activity if you're the kind of person that doesn't dream a lot, so we can take care of that if that's an issue. But every night we all go to sleep for 6 to 8 hours or something, and we're making up stories that whole time. So I want to really dive in there and see what are these stories we're making up, and what's it all about, and what does it have to say about us and our lives. One of the central texts we'll be working on, and all these readings will be supplied to the participants in the workshop in the forms of PDFs, is some chapters from a scholar of religious studies from Rice University who I really admire. His name's Jeffrey Kripal. This is a textbook that he wrote on comparing religions, and he's done a really good job at bringing a lot of alternative ideas into a more academic context, and bringing them into the context of religious studies also. So a lot of interesting ideas in there. So we'll be reading parts of that book and really discussing his ideas. He's probably most well known at this point for writing a book with Whitley Strieber recently, where it's called Supernatural, and Whitley Strieber documents, and recounts some more of his experiences of the strange nature that he's now known for. And Kripal goes through and does a kind of scholarly analysis of each one to try to tease out of them how they're like mystical experiences, how they're useful, what do they say about Whitley's psychology, what do they say about the range of experiences available to human beings, and which ones are maybe given more validity than others, which ones are marginalized and why. So all very interesting questions like that. So the idea of a mystical experience is very, very complicated and very debated, obviously, but we are going to try to go into that territory to figure out what is a mystical experience and how does it relate to writing. So another subject we're going to be talking about is Gnosticism. So this is a book of the Gnostic scriptures, and what do they have to do with the New Age and the religion of the New Age. And so we'll be reading another scholar's book, some parts from another scholar's book who is also at Rice University in the Religious Studies department, named April DeConnick, and she wrote a book looking at Gnostic themes in science fiction films, such as The Truman Show and The Matrix, stuff like that. So she really is she's a biblical studies scholar and really knows the Gnostic materials, these old texts that have been found and are being translated and analyzed. She really knows these well and has done a great job putting those alongside modern science fiction narratives in films and different novels. And so we're gonna look at some of that, which will lead us into probably the most well-known author that we'll be looking at, or most well-known work around mysticism and science fiction, which is Philip K. Dick. And so we'll be reading Valis and talking about PKD's experience, his religious experience. And then this is PKD's exegesis, which is a lot of the writings he did after he had his experience and trying to figure out and make sense of this experience, and what was it. And people probably know a lot of the story behind it, but when you actually read this exegesis and not just his science fiction novels, you get a really interesting picture at someone who is exploring their inner life in a very interesting way. So I want to look at that as well. We're also going to be reading and talking about Octavia Butler's book, The Parable of the Sower. And the reason why I like this one so much is because it presents a very different picture of a person having a mystical experience than, say, the horse lover fat character in Philip K. Dick's novel. So the main character in Parable of the Sower, she has a kind of mystical experience, and she receives, dream visions and so forth, but she has just a different way of going about it. She's just sort of logically figuring it out piece by piece and recording it in her journal and trying to rationally come up with this system rather than just kind of going through this major flowing transcendental kind of experience that Philip K. Dick has as a one-shot event, and then it just flows after. She's more systematic and rational about the way she goes about her mystical experience, but she does end up forming a new religious movement in the novel called Earthseed, which has become popular even now. Some people are kind of making new Earthseed groups as a new religion. So that's interesting. But the goal of this new religion in the novel is to take it out into the cosmos and to seed it among the stars. And so I think that's an interesting way to think about religion and mystical experiences, and how it can really expand one's thinking and one's perception and even one's ideas about inclusivity and this kind of stuff. So there's a lot more to it than that. We're also going to be looking at transhumanism, UFOs. We will read some more of Whitley Strieber's books, Scientology, other works that have bridged the boundary between science fiction and reality and mysticism. This is really what I want to look at, and then bring it all back to our own experiences of dreaming, of imagination, of experiences that we might have had in our lives that are just not explainable either to us or to other people. Maybe we don't talk about them a lot. It would be fun to really talk about those and bring them out, and then see how they compare to the fiction writing process. Like one of the other things we're going to look at is this idea of channeling and automatic writing, where a person puts themselves into a relative trance so that they can receive messages from somewhere and then write out what they receive, and it's an imaginative narrative of a kind coming from somewhere. So I want to put that alongside the process of writing a novel, and just to play with the structure, to loosen it up and see if we can mix and mash this stuff together. So anyway, thanks for listening, and if you're interested in taking part in this workshop and you're in the Davis, Sacramento area, please send me a message and we'll sign you up. Okay, take care.